Hello and welcome. We've been taught to recognize violence when it's visible, but some of the most destructive forms are the ones we've learned to normalize. For a long time, I thought integrity was just a personal value. Now I see it as something far bigger, something that shapes the world we live in. The following short video is called The Violence of Living Out of Integrity. What if everything you've been taught about violence is incomplete? I want to offer a different definition of violence, one that might change how you see the world. But let's first start by examining integrity. One of the most important realizations I've had is that integrity is not simply a personal value, it's a law, a principle that governs whether any system can remain healthy, sustainable, and life serving. Integrity means when anyone or anything is as whole and complete to its true nature and is therefore able to function as close to its built in potential as possible. Think about a bicycle wheel. A wheel is only as strong as its spokes. If several spokes are bent, damaged, or missing, the wheel may continue turning for a while, and at first the damage may not be obvious, but eventually the wheel weakens. The ride becomes unstable, and both the wheel and the rider are placed at risk. The same principle exists within the human body. Your body is made up of trillions of cells. When cells are healthy and working together, the body thrives. But when enough cells become damaged, unhealthy, or disconnected from their proper function, the health of the entire organism is compromised. The body doesn't say, well, those cells don't matter, because every cell contributes to the well being of the whole. Integrity means every part matters. Integrity means nothing essential is excluded. Integrity means the health of the whole depends on the health of its parts. And that brings me to humanity. We live on a planet of extraordinary abundance: water, trees, vegetation, minerals, land, resources beyond what any one generation could ever consume. The source of life created a world rich with everything necessary to sustain human life. Yet somehow we have created systems where access to many of these necessities depends on whether someone has enough money. And that makes me wonder, how did we get here? Let me explain it through an analogy. Imagine life as a giant poker table. Everyone is invited to play. At least that's what we're told. But if you look closely, not everyone arrives at the table with the same number of chips. Some are born into privilege, wealth, education, opportunity, safety, and stability. Others are born into poverty, war, displacement, corruption, violence, or a lack of basic resources. Some arrive with mountains of chips, others arrive with only a handful, and some don't even have enough chips to enter the game at all. Already the game is not equal. But here's where things become even more interesting. Imagine there are a small number of players who've accumulated so many chips they could never realistically lose their seat at that table. They enjoy every luxury, they eat the finest foods, they continue accumulating more chips while barely noticing the people around them struggling to stay in the game. Meanwhile, others are working tirelessly just to survive another round, and some have already been eliminated from the game entirely. They're standing outside the table, watching and waiting, hoping for a crumb to fall their way. Then there's another group, people who believe they're doing okay. They have a home, food on the table, perhaps a few comforts, maybe even a vacation now and then. But they are still only a few unexpected events away from losing much of what they have: a job loss, a health crisis, a recession, a housing collapse, a change in the rules of the game. And suddenly they too find themselves struggling. The question isn't whether some people have more chips than others. The deeper question is the game itself operating with integrity? Because if integrity means every part matters, then we must ask ourselves some uncomfortable questions. Can a system truly be considered healthy when millions struggle to access food, clean water, shelter, healthcare, education, and opportunity while others possess more resources than they could use in multiple lifetimes? Can we call it integrity when human survival depends upon winning a game that many people never had a fair chance of playing? What if the measure of a successful society isn't how many chips the winner accumulates? What if the real measure is whether every human being has enough chips to meet their basic needs? Enough food, enough clean water, enough shelter, enough safety, enough opportunity to participate in life. Because when people's basic needs are met, they don't merely survive, they create, contribute, innovate, connect, and they thrive. A truly intelligent system doesn't leave parts of itself behind because no healthy body sacrifices its cells, no healthy wheel sacrifices its spokes, and no healthy society should sacrifice its people. Which brings me to a question I've been reflecting on deeply. What is violence? Most people think violence is physical harm, and certainly it can be. But perhaps violence is larger than that. Perhaps violence also exists whenever unnecessary suffering is created, sustained, or ignored. Perhaps violence occurs when human beings are denied access to the basic conditions required to live with dignity: food, water, shelter, healthcare, opportunity, and connection. Because when integrity is absent, harm becomes inevitable. Just as a damaged wheel eventually places the cyclist at risk, just as unhealthy cells eventually compromise the body, a society that leaves large numbers of people unable to meet their basic needs places the entire collective at risk, not only economically, not only socially, but morally, because we are not separate from one another. We are participants in the same system, the same wheel, the same body, and the health of the whole can never exceed the health of its parts. If we want more peaceful world, a more just world, and a more sustainable future, then integrity must become more than a personal virtue. It must become a guiding principle in the systems we create. Because wherever integrity is absent, harm follows. And wherever harm is unnecessarily created, sustained, or ignored, we must be willing to ask whether that too is a form of violence. Perhaps one of the most important questions of our time is not who is winning the game, but rather, have we created a game that honors the dignity, well being, and humanity of everyone at that table?